So this is what I collected. And I'm going to plant the sow thistle, and I'm actually just crumbling up paper. Today I'm going to talk about gardening on the cheap. So many of us spend so much money on soil. You buy the soil, you put it in your pots, and then every year, or your containers, you've got to change it. Why? Because the soil you bought is already broke down. Haven't you ever noticed that when you buy bagged soil, there's no earthworms in there and they won't even come to it? There's no food. It's been broken down already, and they've added usually lots of, well, I shouldn't say chemicals. We don't know what they add, but they do add things such as plant food, and that's why after you grow for a few months, the plants don't look as good. But when you do it like nature does, well, let's talk about that. What does nature do? We'll get back to that in a second. Soil can be very expensive, and then what do you want to do? Do you want to have organic? Do you want it to be non-organic? And then what is organic? Did you ever look that up in the dictionary? Doesn't really mean much. Just means it came from living matter, which means that can be leaves, dung, or waste matter, which is another word for feces, but you can grow in that. The point is, what does nature do? Does nature go out and buy soil every year? I mean, you got beautiful trees and forests and hills and mountains and weeds growing in the yard, or on the hillsides, or on the side of the road. What are they growing in? It's coming out of the soil on the ground. It's coming out of compost. And everything you see here is how we're planting, by just throwing in stuff that was once from the earth. I'm going to let you watch this as I talk, because I think we can talk about this subject 1,000 times and there'll always be something else to add to it. I personally buy very little soil, but I do use it for certain things. Depends on my mood. I will say that Gary uses no potting soil at all. I sometimes like to put it on the top, but I'm going to let you watch all this because this is how I plant my plants. But of course, if you feel more comfortable buying the soil, or if you've got the money to do so, and I know a lot of us are having problems gardening because it's too expensive, this may be for you. I have found that a lot of things that we are being told is simply not true. You really have to stop, take a deep breath, and look around. I think once you look at nature and start to analyze it and just enjoy outside, you'll see what's going on there can go on in your yard too. Sometimes something that you read or you were told you must do is because somebody said it. And because one person said it, another person says it, and before you know it, thousands of people are saying the same thing, and it's not true. We have to learn to garden the way Mother Nature gardens. We are not a farm. Now, farms are different. They have to make the produce look a certain way. People aren't going to buy something that doesn't look good. They don't want ugly produce. They want something to be big and shiny. And so, yes, they will feed the dickens out of it and do whatever they have to make it look that way. Or create designer plants that will last long on the shelves, have a thick skin. It may not taste as good, but it will sit for a very long time before it breaks down or rots. But food was never meant to be that way. So if you're growing it in your backyard, the main thing is the vitamins and how it was grown, and it's organic. And you're not treating the produce that you're growing to last long. I'm picking my produce and using it that day. I'm not irradiating it or doing anything to it. It is fresh out of the yard, and then we're consuming it. And yes, sometimes I freeze it or pickle it or do something with it. But the main thing is it's coming from my yard. I'm not putting any chemicals on it, so I know it's good. And I am doing it on the cheap. I am using matter around here. It's paper and leaves and weeds. Anything I can find to build the bottom part of the soil. Why the bottom? Well, I'll have some nicer soil on the top, but while the plants are growing, what you're seeing going in there is going to turn into beautiful soil. Oh, you call it compost. But either way, all that matter that is going into my containers while the plants are growing disappears. The worms gravitate to it, and so do the microbes, because that's their food, and then our plants feed off of what the worms and the microbes leave behind. The point is, when you buy potting soil, there's no earthworms or microbes in there because it's the end result. Where by adding leaf matter and all that, your soil is like nature. It's alive. And what are plants growing in? In the wild, in nature? Living soil. I want it like nature has it. I want it to be alive. My soil is alive from the moment I am growing in it. And I'll have radishes, flowers, tomatoes, and everything growing in all kinds of containers. Dishpans and buckets and flower pots and trash cans, totes, or in the ground. Point is, I know I can fill it for pennies, where some people are spending hundreds of dollars. Now, of course, if you can afford it and you want to buy organic, very expensive soil, go for it. I want you to garden. I want you to grow something that is in your yard that you can pick, that is fresh, that has all the nutrients and all the enzymes and everything you need, including the vitamins. Because a lot of stuff we buy does not. The vitamins could be depleted out of the vegetables because they're irradiated. But if you mix it up, and you grow some of your own, and you are buying, because we face it, we can't grow everything we need. I mean, some of you can, but generally most of us are in the city or in suburbs and in places where we just have no physical way to grow everything. But if we mix it up, believe you me, our bodies are going to gravitate to all the nutrients and vitamins when you put that in your body because of something you grew. So do mix it up. Get the best of both worlds. I'm not a health nut. I'll tell you that right now. But the point I'm trying to say is some of us can save a lot of money by gardening. Let me tell you, food is expensive, especially if it's labeled certified organic. But like I said, we're not going to go there on that. The point is we can save money and eat better. We don't have to buy a ton of soil, and we can make our own soil by composting and filling our containers at least halfway with matter around our property. And let me tell you, some of you are saying to me, I can hear you right now, I don't have anything. Well, guess what? Start whatever way you can. If you have to buy soil, start, because once you start growing, you will have plenty of matter, great matter to put into your containers, because those plants that are growing, those leaves that are growing will go back to your soil. And any fruit or vegetable that you don't eat can go back in, all of it. What you're seeing here is just a few things we have grown. I do not go out there and videotape and put piles of vegetables around so you can see everything or fruit. I don't have time. I go out there and pick as I need each day. That's what I do. And when I need it, I go in the yard and I forage for it, or if it's the end of the season, I will freeze it. Sometimes I dry it, sometimes I can it. The point is, having no money to buy soil is not an excuse to not garden, because we're gardening with very little purchased soil. Nature makes its own soil, and you can see everything growing here is growing from what we made with very little soil if we top it just for the young plants. Sometimes all I do is remove some of the soil that was in there from last year, put in more leaves, kitchen scraps, anything, and then cover it with maybe some more soil that was already in there or from another container. You saw me do this with the glass window to look through and watch me put eggs and fish and all kinds of stuff in there, old pasta, toilet paper rolls. You saw it, and when we came back, in a matter of a few weeks, it was almost gone. And within a few more weeks, there was nothing left. Let me correct myself. We now had beautiful, rich soil. Nature had taken it back and turned it into what is done daily, back into soil. Now, if nature does it, why do we have to put out a lot of money if we don't have it? There's nothing wrong with buying. I will never tell you not to buy. But don't tell me you can't garden because it's too expensive, because look, I'm making my own soil. I'm doing it in all different fashions. Here's celery and parsley growing. Just drop in some kitchen scraps and eggshells and all that. No, I don't bake it or anything, the eggshells. And then we end up with all this. And you know what? Don't let me be told that seeds won't grow in compost. Look at this. I didn't even cover that. And I've got squash seeds and all kinds of things growing, and they grow the most beautiful plants and the most beautiful fruit. Tomatoes, peppers, they all come up because I compost the fruit, and the seeds are there and just waiting to grow when the time is right, when spring comes. So you can compost pretty much anything you want to compost. Yes, you may not want to put meat in there because it can attract animals. But as far as will it break down? Well, look at this little tree I got early in the year. My daughter got me that. It's an apricot tree. And you know what's under that tree? Well, let's take a look at the tree a few months later. How beautiful and big. Need I say how much I miss her? So keep a thought out on the cycle of life when it comes with plants. You know what you've seen here. You know how we grow. And if your excuse is you cannot garden because soil is too expensive, step back, look around, see how nature does it, and I think you'll be able to garden too. And the collecting of leaves and plant matter can be done all year. It doesn't matter whether it's winter, spring, summer, or fall. And don't worry if it freezes what you're collecting, because the microbes and the earthworms will find it when the time is right. So I hope I've given you some things to think about. Compost in any way that's easy for you. I've shown you so many different methods of composting, and there is no turning. It's just drop and go for it and cover it. With that, have a wonderful day, and don't forget to eat what you grow. Bye-bye.